Welcome to this video, practice 4 of the practice section of the Desperate Pianist. Here, the videos fix more problems than any other piano videos do. You should be coming here from practice 3, so if you have, we'll get on with our work. As soon as you find that you can get through your 2 bars fairly quickly with Ben's rule of 3, maybe after a couple of days, increase your 2-bar roll to 3, 4, complete lines and the complete section. Keep playing at your slow pace that you've been doing. Don't speed up, although you will find that as you get to know it better, you will naturally speed up. You can reduce the frequency that you visit the section, maybe just to 1 or 2 times a day, as soon as you've had it fairly well set in mind. And again, leave the foot pedals alone for now. Learn to step outside yourself and monitor your progress, as we've said before. It may be that you can increase the size of your bar roll more than I've said. It may be that you might have to do more eyes closed. It may be that you can memorize faster or slower. Just try to be intelligent and work out what's best for you. Probably after 3 or 4 days, start the next section, your 8 or 16 bars or whatever, as in the previous practice videos. That is, by applying Ben's rule of 3 and Ben's rolling 2-bar. And you want to be doing this as soon as you've really laid down the memories for section 1. Don't wait too long and end up with section 1 way ahead of the rest. Just see if you're comfortable with the previous section and then move on. Join up the sections as you go with the rule of 3. We've talked about that previously. Don't neglect the joins. They're just as important as anywhere else. And in fact, if there's 2 different joins, one might have to go back as a repeat and then the next one move on. Then they're twice as important and you'll have to do twice as much work on them. Every piece of music has its harder places to play. I don't know why they exist, but they do. And you will have marked them with your red pen. Now, they're called difficult because we keep stumbling there. But it's not actually the difficulty. It's just that they're a place where your brain is overloaded and your fingers just don't know where to go next. Once we realise this, we can then apply more firepower to these difficult places using Ben's fixers, and they can be fixed. As an aside, it could be that your fingers just aren't physically doing what you tell them, say holding down particular notes and playing others, or playing fast enough or playing loud enough, whatever it is. But that's a completely different thing, and that can be cured by going over to Ben's finger gym and building up your dexterity. A few hints to help you with your red marks. Sometimes the problem is just before you think it is. Your brain is already on overload before it gets on overload. Sometimes the problem is not where you think it is, it's in the other hand. You might not have learnt the simple part if it's in the other hand. It could be that you're looking at a difficult part from one direction only, which sounds a bit weird. But think about your house. You can see it from the front or the back. It's still your house, but it looks different. And to do this, you need to see if you can find some different shapes, or make sure that you know the key signatures or different start points or something like that. That really helps. If you've got a large number of problem areas, it might be better to switch to a simpler version of the piece you're doing. A piece has to be finished to performance standard before your motivation reserves run out. But then if it's your dream piece, you've probably got an infinite amount of reserves of motivation to help you get to performance. The subject of mistakes is covered in huge detail in 2 other videos you'll find on this channel. So we'll move on. Wherever you've marked your music with your red pen, apply Ben's rolling note fixer to concentrate more firepower on the problem areas. Start a bar or so before the problem area and apply the rule of 3 over 2 bars, or it might be 3 bars or 1 bar, until you've got the rule of 3 right. And then roll the fixer forward just 1 note So instead of rolling forward one bar, we're going to roll one note, or whatever is the most convenient part for you to do it, and then repeat Ben's rule of three. The idea of Ben's fixers, and there are more, is to bring the problem within the range of your learning sweet spot, just out of range of your short-term memory, and forcing your brain to create a really accurate picture and memory of what this difficult piece is. You'll be creating a start point for each note by remembering where you start each time, because you're using Ben's rule of three. Separate the hands if necessary so you can concentrate on any jumps or any difficult bits, and of course keep slowing down if you need to. Experiment with the length of the bars so you can alter how much you're taking in at one time. You will have to learn what is best for you. We've mentioned it before. You'll get better at working and monitoring yourself the more pieces you do as time goes on. If you're still stumbling at a red mark and you want to do a bit more work on it, then apply the blind rolling note fixer. If you're still stumbling, then you must reapply the rolling note fixer with your eyes closed, so that then you have to know all the notes and the distances intrinsically. It's a real challenge, but it's worth doing. Another thing you can do is the 1 second rolling note fixer. It may be that you have a problem in a particular place because your motor memory is tripping you up. If you play the notes 1 second apart, you can set your metronome to help you. The gap between the notes is too long for your motor memory to operate. You have to rely on your conscious memory. And it's really surprising how much, if you do this, you'll find how little a piece you know. And that'll force you to learn the conscious memory part, and then it'll be more robust. Once you've applied a rolling note fixer, leave that problem part alone until the next practice session. Don't go back over it thinking, oh, I'll just run over this and it'll help, because it won't. It's very likely you'll make a mistake, and that'll foul up because it'll overlay a bad memory on top of all the good memories you've laid down. Once you've done all this work on a hard piece of your piece, then you'll find that that can become actually the easiest part of the piece to play. And that's really good for your morale, because you realise that if you can do good concentrated work on the whole piece, then you'll be able to get it to a high performance standard. Let's have a look to see what a rolling note fixer means in practical detail. I find these 3 bars here, especially these 2 bars, quite awkward because they've got, I don't know why, it's something to do with the jumps and the forms of the chords. I'll see if I can play it without a mistake. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to cover over 6 notes at a time. We can choose how the interval we like, and then we're going to apply Ben's rule of 3. And then when we've played it 3 times without a mistake, we're just going to move the cardboard forward 1 note. And then we're going to reapply, and of course creating a start point at each note, so we're not going to refer to the music when we come back to start each time. And so on. We'll just keep applying Ben's rule of 3. And then, of course, we can do it with eyes closed, and I don't bother demonstrating that because you can't check to see whether I'm doing it right. And then, of course, there's the 1 second rolling note fixer. Now, I've set my metronome to 40 beats a minute, and that is slow enough to disrupt my motor memory. And then we'll work through the piece like that, and especially this part, but you'll find that that's really useful to find out whether you're relying too much on your motor memory and your conscious memory isn't good enough to ride shotgun and come to the rescue when needed. As soon as you can play the section through without faltering, Set the metronome with your slow speed and get the rhythm accurately set. Don't speed up until you're happy with your work. Now, you must try and set the metronome to the beat of the music. Don't double up. Only under exceptional circumstances should you do this. You will distort your feeling of the piece if you don't set the metronome to the beat. The metronome will surprise you and expose areas both in rhythm and notes. Now, this is why we do the metronome. You'll find that, oh, I can't play this and I can't play that, but that's the reason for it. It's all part of building robustness. Just fix them with the rule of 3 and you'll have a much more robust section of music. Mark any place where you find the rhythm difficult with your red pen so you can deal with them in the same way as you would with any other mark. The metronome needs using a lot until it becomes a tool of torture that torments you. If you're not practicing detailed sections as in the previous videos or performing, you should really be playing with the metronome. You take a lot of trouble to get the notes right and the rhythm really needs similar treatment. Plus, metronome work gives you another strand to your practice. It adds variation and purpose when you tire of working with the rule of 3, for example. Use the metronome often to develop an even tempo throughout the piece. It's surprising how you speed up when it's easy and then slow down where it's more difficult, and that the listener doesn't want to hear. Start at about 50 to 55 beats per minute for most pieces, then use the metronome to gradually increase up to the required tempo, which will be your tempo. It might not necessarily be the one specified. Don't get bogged down trying to get a piece up to a certain speed, especially a fast one. I personally find it quite hard to play fast, and as long as you're accurate, you can get away with a good performance at a slower speed. The metronome will tell you the speed at which your brain can't process the data stream fast enough. Playing that fast is destructive. Use the metronome to slow down and then you'll be able to lay down your good memories. The metronome will also help with keeping in time when you repair a mistake on the hoof. So if you're playing with the metronome and you make a mistake, keep with the metronome. Don't falter on the metronome, falter on the note and then recover and carry on. That'll be a really useful skill to develop. Use the metronome to get syncopated notes in the right place. Now, modern music can be very syncopated, and if that's really difficult for you, you've got to bring the metronome in earlier when you really first start applying Ben's rule of 3. Otherwise, you're going to make a lot of trouble later. Modern music uses a metronome all the time, and surprise, surprise, it's called a drummer. The metronome will help you where there are unusual groups of notes, like group of 5 in a beat. The metronome will help you have to play 3 against 2 or 4 against 3, or even harder ones. We'll look at that shortly, probably in the next video. We'll use the metronome when we revisit a piece later for maintenance. It will give you valuable practice information. Turn it off when you have to stop and apply the rule of 3. So if you've gone wrong, turn it off and just study that piece before you resume. Or of course, if it begins to drive you completely crazy, which it can do. And when you've done all this and you can play the piece accurately with the rhythm, you have the right to play it as rubato as you like. But do not use the rubato as an excuse to play the piece at a poorer standard. Now head over to practice 5 to complete our study of the mechanics of practice.